Okay, let's dive into this. Go ahead and take a slow, deep, comfortable breath. Just let your shoulders drop. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're embarking on a real journey toward inner peace. We're going to step away from the absolute noise and chaos of our daily lives to uncover a timeless piece of wisdom. We're looking at a pretty fascinating story drawn directly from the Dhammapada, which is a cornerstone text of Buddhist philosophy. But listen, this isn't just ancient history. It's a profoundly relevant psychological mirror for us today, showing us exactly how to align our inner lives with our outer worlds. So settle in and let's explore this together.
So think about this for a second. Does a title or a uniform actually guarantee a person's inner virtue? Or does true character lie somewhere much, much deeper? It's a paradox we see literally every single day, right? Now, I really encourage you to stick around for the full explainer, because figuring out how to incorporate these profound lessons into the real world is how we truly begin to understand life. Resolving this very paradox, that gap between who we appear to be and who we actually are, well, it holds the absolute key to finding personal tranquility in what is, let's face it, a pretty chaotic world. To really get into this, we're going to turn to the ancient parable of Venerable Upananda. Now, he was a monk who held a highly respected social role. He'd travel around and fervently preach to others, telling them not to be greedy. He would tell people they needed to be entirely content with what they had, even if what they had wasn't very much. On the surface, his public persona was impeccable. But privately, well, his internal mental state was a completely different story. Behind those robes of a spiritual guide, he secretly harbored just this immense, consuming greed. He was actually the very definition of a hypocrite. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how far his greed pushed him. So during the Vasa, which is the traditional 3-month rainy season retreat for monks, Upananda basically decided to go monastery shopping to maximize his material gain. He went to a village monastery, gave this beautiful sermon, and was immediately invited to stay. But when he found out they were only going to offer each monk one single robe at the end of the retreat, he bailed. But he cunningly left his slippers behind to claim a spot. At the next monastery, which offered 2 robes, he left his staff. At the third, offering 3 robes, he left his water bottle. Finally, he hit the jackpot, a large, wealthy monastery offering 4 robes. The source text actually tells us he literally rubbed his hands together with glee and decided to stay right there. And at the end of the 3 months, he traveled back to all 4 monasteries, shamelessly collecting the robes from every single one of them. But wait, it actually gets worse. On his way back home, lugging this massive haul of robes, Upananda stumbles upon 2 young monks having a heated argument. They were trying to figure out how to divide 2 robes and a very costly, luxurious blanket, and they just couldn't agree. So they asked Upananda to act as an arbitrator. And Upananda was more than happy to help, but entirely because he saw an angle for himself. After putting on a big show of pretending to carefully consider their case, he awarded each young monk 1 basic robe, and as for that luxurious, expensive blanket, he boldly just took it for himself as an arbitration fee for his trouble. Well, naturally, the 2 young monks were absolutely outraged, and they went straight to the Buddha to complain. The Buddha sends for Upananda and severely reprimands him. And right here is where the story pivots. It completely shifts from being just some amusing, ancient tale about a greedy grifter wearing monastic robes into a profoundly deep lesson on human integrity and the psychological alignment of our actions and our words. The Buddha looked directly at Upananda and said this: "If you want to teach others, you should first teach yourself and do as you preach." I want you to just breathe for a second and really absorb that. It's so incredibly simple, yet it's incredibly demanding. We cannot authentically guide others, we can't claim any kind of moral or social high ground, unless we have first done the internal work ourselves. Our outward actions absolutely must align with our inner reality. So, the crucial point is captured perfectly in verse 158 of the Dhammapada. One should first establish oneself in what is proper and then teach others. A wise man should be beyond all reproach. Now, this ancient wisdom is incredibly penetrating for the modern mind. Being beyond reproach doesn't mean you're somehow perfect. It means your internal intentions actually match your external declarations. It means you aren't walking around wearing a mask. For a modern audience interested in psychology and mindfulness, this right here is where the real gold lies. Think about our external social roles, the titles at our jobs, the metaphorical robes we all wear, the advice we so easily dish out to our friends on social media. Now, contrast that with our internal mental states, our actual unvarnished intentions, our hidden anxieties, and our true level of contentment.
The Dhammapada teaches us that internal mental states define our character far more than any social role ever could. Think of it like this. If the external is a beautiful house, the internal is the foundation. If that foundation is rotten, well, the house is eventually going to collapse. The source text explained this through a concept known as mind as the forerunner. Volition, or your mental intention, is the absolute precursor to all of our actions. As the text translates it, mind is the starting point in shaping who we are. As we think, so we become. Upananda was physically wearing the robes of a monk, sure, but his mind was running wild with the intentions of a thief. Because his mind was tethered to greed, his reality could never actually be peaceful. Your real-world tranquility is entirely dictated by what is happening in your mind long before you ever take a physical step.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the Dhammapada uses this brilliant agricultural metaphor in verse 356. It says, "Greed ruins the mind just as weeds ruin fields." Unwholesome kama, actions rooted in mental states of greed, hatred, and delusion, acts exactly like a subtle weed. You might not even notice it at first, but beneath the soil, it strangles the roots of your internal peace. Upananda's greed was a weed that completely choked out all those beautiful teachings he was reciting from memory.
Let's move to and see how this builds into practical application. How do we actually cultivate this inner peace today? Well, the sources lay out a really clear path. First, actively cleanse your mind of these weeds. Second, practice heedfulness. That's a constant, unremitting self-awareness of your own impulses. Third, aggressively align what you do with what you intend. Literally, practice what you preach. Fourth, try to lessen that tight grip on the ego, letting go of the mind and body as strictly I and mine. And finally, as verse 122 says, do not think lightly of doing good. A water jar is filled drop by drop. You build integrity and peace through tiny, consistent daily choices. As we come to a close, I want you to ask yourself, are your actions today actually matching the words you preach? Take a moment to truly reflect on your own life. Are you perhaps wearing a robe of contentment while secretly harboring a mind of greed? May listening to this story bring you true internal peace, achieved through the noble cause of genuine good deeds deep within your heart. Remember, true character is always built from the inside out. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep reflecting, carefully observe your mind, and take these lessons out into the world.